Hi there, and welcome to another in our series of faith stories. With me today I have Clare Jackson, one of our missionary partners who has just recently returned from Mozambique. Clare, welcome.
Thank you, it's good to be with you.
Yeah, so good to have you. So Clare, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born and bred, I guess, in Essex, but for the last few years I've been in Mozambique, so I've been with a Christian organisation called Pastors Verdes.
And tell us how you got into missionary work.
So I grew up in Billericay Baptist Church and sort of came through the youth group here. And when I was about 17, as part of the youth group, we were encouraged to ask God what he wanted us to do with our lives. And on that particular evening, I felt God sort of say that he wanted me to work overseas with children. And so not long after that, I did a gap year and went to Brazil for sort of 6 months as part of that gap year. And just throughout my life, of whenever I sort of asked God what he wanted me to do, I just always felt that sense to be working overseas with vulnerable children.
But what made you go to Brazil in the first place?
At that stage, I did a gap year with BMS World Mission.
Yeah.
And so you're in a team of four, they sort of have various places that they send you, but Brazil was one of the places they were working with children.
Right.
And so that was one of the ones that I had down as my top three.
Okay.
Was really pleased that they sent me there and had a great time serving God, but also getting to know Brazil and getting to know the beaches where we were and as part of the team as well. It was a really sort of formative time in my life.
Beaches are a good bonus as well, right?
I mean,
being in Brazil.
It's a hard life sometimes, but it is, if you can go to the beach on your day off, it helps it a bit.
Fantastic. And did you know then, when you were in Brazil or even before that you were going to go to Mozambique later on?
No, not at all. In fact, I thought I'd probably be heading back to South America again.
Right.
And so I went to Brazil a couple more times on short-term missions with a church team and a summer team from when I was living and based in Canterbury.
Okay.
And then I got to my mid-20s and I spent quite a lot of time asking God when I could go overseas again and where. And I kind of felt there were some life events that sort of meant I felt it was time to start exploring that again. And I ended up going to Peru for a year and a half with Latin Link. So I had to drop the Portuguese and had to go to Spanish. But also had a great time out there and learnt a whole load of new skills.
That's great. Any particular skills that you want to share with us?
How to eat a chicken's brain.
Oh, wow. How to eat a chicken's brain.
Yes.
Okay.
But I was again on the sort of working with youth and children.
Yeah.
And learned a little bit of Quechua, of the language Quechua while I was over there.
That's impressive. So you're not just bilingual or even trilingual, you are multilingual, really.
I think a little bit of Quechua is the main...
All right, let's not stretch it too much then.
Yeah.
And how did Mozambique come about?
I was back in Canterbury, having been in Peru, and I was living and working there, and just felt that it was time for a change yet again. And in the job that I was in, I was working in retail. Christmas is really sort of it uses a lot of energy. Like it's really tiring. And I just kind of said to God, like, by next Christmas I want to be out of here. And thankfully that kind of worked with his plans as well. And I met someone through a mutual friend that was living and serving in Mozambique. And I, like she said to lots of people, if you ever want to come and visit us, then you're welcome to. And after that, Mozambique just seemed to sort of keep coming into my mind from lots of different places. When it wasn't a country that I'd heard much about before. And after a while, I sort of started to ask God, like, is this something that I need to be pursuing? Is this something I need to be seeking? And so sent an email to the lady that I'd met and said, I don't know if you remember me, we met at so-and-so's birthday meal. Could I possibly come out and visit? And so I left my job, I left where I was living and moved back to Billericay with my parents. So I knew that change was coming.
Yeah.
And then went out for 6 weeks to visit this organisation and very quickly sort of felt that it was the right place to be and it was somewhere that I should be going back to longer term. And so that's where I've been for the last 5 years.
Wow, fantastic. Tell us a little bit about that.
So when I went out to Mozambique, they were just sort of finishing off the physical preparations for the building for the boys' home.
Yeah.
So while I was there, I was part of the sort of the final preparations and a lot of the sort of the guidelines and the safeguarding and all those kind of preparations, as well as fitting curtains and things like that. And then about 8-9 months after I got there, we received, the home officially opened and we received the first boys.
Right.
And along with the house parents. So we started off with 3. and then a couple of house parents sort of living there for a couple of days and then going back to their homes and then sort of swapping on a rota. But I've been the overseer of the boys' home.
Okay.
So that's been my main area of work, along with sort of getting involved with vulnerable children in our community as well.
So what kind of things would you do with the boys?
It was my responsibility to make sure that they were healthy and fed and behaving well, which of course always happened.
Of course.
And yes, they never misbehaved.
Of course not.
And that the house parents had everything that they needed to do to be able to do their jobs well. But sort of everything that a normal parent would do was sort of ultimately my responsibility for the boys' home, but always with the house parents working alongside me. So they were the ones that were day to day in the home. Yeah. And I lived a 20-second walk away. But I sort of had if there was any problems, and I was the one that they came to. But sort of making sure that their meals were healthy and balanced, because a lot of them came to us with malnutrition problems. Wow. Making sure that their education kept moving forward, and a lot of them came with sort of having not studied well and not knowing what they should do for their age. And in fact, most of them came to us not speaking the national language of Mozambique, not speaking Portuguese. They came speaking their tribal language. Right. So of course that also took time and energy.
Yeah. What's it been like just living in the country? How did you adapt? How did God help you to adapt in that nation, really? Yeah,
he helped me massively. Yeah. I'm not someone that actually finds change particularly easy, which is slightly frustrating with some of the things that have gone in my life. Like I seem to have to adapt to change quite a bit. But just you feel like a child, sort of like a toddler learning to walk again when you go to a new country. Yeah. Everything that you think you know how to do something changes, and people's priorities are different. So in Mozambique, relationships are very important, and more so than actually sort of tasks and getting things done. So quite often I would sort of wake up and have a list of things that I wanted to do that day. And actually it was often the conversations that I had with people that I found were interrupting what I wanted to get done. But actually in the long run they enabled those things to get done. Yeah. But of course, you're also a baby in the language when you first go there as well. So just being able to buy the right thing or know where to buy it. So everyday tasks just becomes a lot more challenging. But as time goes on, after sort of a year or two, things do become easier. Yeah.
And what about the boys' home as well? How did you find that?
Yeah, it was challenging. Again, I was the only person involved with the boys' home that actually hasn't raised children of my own. Yeah. So I came with it from a different perspective, which, I mean, God knew that. But also I came with my ideas from the UK of perhaps how to raise children, and that doesn't necessarily work in a Mozambican environment. Yeah. So I had to do a lot of listening, a lot of learning, a lot of kind of observing what went on and taking sort of what I consider the better parts from sort of both cultures and seeing how they could be sort of work together. And of course the boys came with their own needs as well, and so you find out what they are as time goes on. Some of them have more behavioural needs, some of them have had more language needs, some of them have more educational or health needs. Yeah. And so there was also then the challenges of finding out how do you resolve those in the city that I was in. Yeah.
Quite a challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite a challenge.
It's fun.
Fun. I'm sure we could find other words to describe it, but tell us then about any particular specific stories that you wouldn't mind sharing, just to bring it to life. Yeah,
so growing up in the boys' home, all the boys are sort of growing up in a faith environment. All the house parents are Christians, and a lot of us sort of around them are as well. Okay. But obviously they may choose to go another way. But a couple of them have decided to make commitments, sort of verbally, that they're sort of age sort of 11, 12, 13, those kind of ages, which is great. And then in the last sort of year or two, they've started doing some jobs around site and helping out with sort of feeding some of the livestock and carrying bits and pieces and sort of with the maintenance of cars and of houses as well, and I've been getting some pocket money with that. Yeah. And so one of them decided to buy his own Bible with that pocket money as well, which is great. He did buy a phone first, so priorities. Yeah, but that's what you expect from a sort of a young guy. Yeah. But that's great, and he recognised it was important to be spending that time with God, and a couple of the others wanted to do it as well, but didn't quite have enough money at the time, so they're working towards it.
But it makes it all worth it, right? That 5 years that you spend.
Yeah.
So now that you're back in the UK, where are you off to next?
Well, I hope that I will be studying at All Nations College come September. I'm still in the process of applying for the Masters.
Okay.
But I hope to be studying a master's in missiology,
Okay.
which is theology of mission, for those
Okay.
like me that don't know what missiology means.
Okay.
But the idea, I still feel in my heart that I will be serving overseas again in the future.
Okay.
But it would be good to get some more kind of study and some more sort of head knowledge alongside the practical knowledge that I have now.
Yeah.
So it's a year's course.
Okay.
I'll be living there it's actually in a place called Ware in Hertfordshire.
Okay.
And so
Back to proper England.
yes, it's a beautiful place actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
It is.
So Claire, thank you so much for that. And finally, any kind of tips or advice that you'd like to leave with our viewers? Anything that you've learned over the last 5 years?
I think that something that God has continually taught me and will probably need to keep teaching me throughout my life is that he is always faithful and you can always trust in him.
Yeah.
And also certainly some of the challenges that come up in life, actually, you can see them as opportunities as well. Quite often when life doesn't go our way, then it's easy to sort of get down and that's understandable. But actually, for me to keep remembering that God is in all things that we do. And he's always right there alongside me. And actually he can turn anything into an opportunity to learn more, to serve him more, and to know and to love him more.
Great. Wonderful. Claire, thank you so much. It's been a privilege to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.